Hi guys, Kait here. Before we get started, I wanted to share that this episode includes details of my own struggles with infertility and pregnancy loss. If these are topics that may trigger you, we lovingly understand if you need to skip this one. Okay, on to the episode.
Welcome to Moms in the Wild with Kait
and Kara,
where we laugh at our wild moments to make you feel better about yours.
Welcome back!
Welcome back!
It's Moms in the Wild. What is your wild moment of the week?
I have a good one.
Ooh.
So, we have been taking walks in the evenings because, you know, it's nicer here finally.
Yeah.
We're starting to get a break in the abrasive heat.
Yeah.
So,
It's Florida, so you can only walk at night.
yes.
Until, like, for 1 week in January, it's nice and you can go out during the day, and then that's pretty much it.
Yes. And, like,
And we're not in January right now.
The only time that our dog Elle, who's a 12-year-old Chihuahua, likes our child is either when he's giving her treats or he is walking her.
Oh, yeah.
Because he walks her. No one else is allowed to touch her.
Gotcha. Do you think it's because she feels like she can get away? So she's like wide open spaces. That's why I enjoy him.
Oh my God. Yes. That is why.
It all makes sense now.
It all makes sense.
He's either feeding me or I can run from him as quickly as possible.
So he is starting to talk much more,
Mm-hmm.
which is very exciting. His vocabulary, I feel like, just like exploded like a bomb overnight. And he's calling his knees his me's, which is very...
His knees?
His me's.
Oh.
M-E-E-S. So, yeah, his knees.
My knees.
So head, shoulders, knees, and toes. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this is glorious.
So, this is very important to the story. So we're on the walk. I mean, I would say like 10 steps in, he trips. And one of my favorite things he's doing, it's bad because it's when he's getting hurt, but he tripped, fell, scraped his knee, and looks up at us still laying on the ground and goes, "Oh, my knee!"
My me! Like his whole personhood. My me! My me's.
So he does the toddler thing where they just stay where they are.
They stay where they are. They stay
So
in
I
place.
pick him up. He's like crying a little bit. I see like a pretty good scrape on his knee. Like there's blood.
He actually did hurt his knee.
Yeah. So 10 steps into our walk, the correct choice is to just turn around and go home.
Gotcha.
We didn't make that choice.
Yeah. You powered on.
We powered on.
Nice.
So he wanted to be held. He wanted only me to hold him. Poor sweet David is like, "What if you get on Daddy's shoulders?"
He was like,
"No."
Nah. He said hard pass.
What if Daddy holds you? No. And he's like a solid 35
He's a
to
toddler.
38 pounds.
Yeah.
Like, he's a big kid.
He's very tall.
So I'm carrying him the entire... Our walk is a mile.
As he's bleeding out on you.
He's bleeding
He
on
also,
me.
I'm sure in his head, he was a wounded soldier.
The whole time I was
Yes.
carrying him, he's going, "Ow, mommy hurt."
He's like, I have sustained an injury.
He's
And I like how you're like, we're still going for a walk, man. Like, pack it up, we gotta go.
He's switching from like, "Mama, blue truck," to
It's like, I remembered I'm injured.
"Boo boo, my knee, mommy, boo boo." So I did
Probably.
carry him. I'm sweating. Just
You're a
thinking
brave.
about it.
You're also a brave soldier in this. Because my 11-month-old, I would have been like, nope.
And I was thinking as this was happening, like the last time I had to carry him for an extended period of time was a very long time ago.
Mhm.
Like over a year.
Yeah, he was a little thing.
So it was a lot. I carried him for almost a mile.
Oh my
I
gosh.
had to like switch sides, and then every time I switched sides, he was like, "Mommy."
Yeah, his injury.
His
Kate.
injury. I know.
Insensitive.
Bad mom award.
Bad mom.
So the real kicker is that he finally wants to walk like the last, I don't know, 0.25 miles. Yeah.
I will wait
I
until
can do it.
Yeah, I will wait until the very end.
I've rested.
Yeah.
I can do it.
I'm feeling revived.
So he's so excited to get home because I told him we can have an ice cream party after the walk, which is just all of us eat ice cream.
That's the nicest way to give yourself a treat.
Yeah.
And not have him take it from you. It's like everyone gets ice cream. It's an ice cream party. Everyone gets one. You don't need moms. You have your own.
So he's so excited. He is steps away from our front door. Down he goes.
No. Was he running?
No.
He was just walking. He couldn't do it.
He was just walking and couldn't do it.
Oh.
And the best thing ever is he looks up, tears in his eyes, and goes, "Oh no, my 2 me's."
He wasn't wrong.
Oh,
his
best
poor
thing ever.
me's. Aw, little Bubba in the me's.
It's so cute. You know, you feel bad for him, but also I was like, oh, thank God. I love when he says that.
Yeah. It's really hard. So we're at a stage where the temper tantrums are so cute.
Yeah.
Because it's just like a full body thing. And so we also have a dog. And our dog really loves Bubba.
Yeah.
I think because Bubba's the right age to be engaging and playing.
Yes.
But with the baby, hasn't figured it out yet. So there are times where there's just does not want the baby to be around him at all. And so last night we were trying to get the baby away from and just fully on the ground and like a guttural like, ugh! And it's so hard not to laugh. Like the same Bubba was like, my knees! It's so hard not. You know he's hurt. You know he's hurt. You acknowledge it, but it's so hard not to laugh because they're so cute.
I know.
A tiny baby gutturally screaming with all that they have because they can't, fuck with a dog for 45 minutes while they're trying to go to bed. It's adorable.
I know.
It's really hard not to laugh in those moments.
I do though. It's probably doing something bad to his psyche, but I can't help it.
Yeah, I really have to stifle it.
If you look at that tiny creature who is
My
like...
knees! So adorable.
I know.
Or, yeah, just really getting into whatever they're doing.
And I will say that my experience with having a son is that whole like man flu thing that like men are worse when they're sick.
Okay.
Happens at a very young age.
She's already in it.
So we have been dealing with Mummy's injuries for a solid 2 days
time.
where we have to just talk about them all day.
Yeah.
We've iced, we've put Band-Aids.
Yeah.
We will talk about the me injuries until they are healed on his body.
That's good. That's great.
Yeah.
You're allowing him to express, getting a little narrative in there. He's like, I need to be acknowledged that I am injured.
Yeah.
So it'll be a big story in the house.
Yeah.
Thank God you have that entertainment. What would you do with your time?
Yeah.
You didn't have to talk about your toddler's scrape knees. Probably nothing, right?
So random too. I'm
Probably
like
nothing.
making him lunch. He's like, Mama. I'm like,
Hey.
yes. He goes, Mommy, boo boo. Like, yes.
Yeah, I do recall when that happened to you 16 years ago.
Does it hurt right now? No.
Nope.
Okay.
Wanted to tell you though. Wanted to let you know.
Toddlers, man. What was your wild mom moment?
My wild mom moment was, so I think a main theme of the podcast is that I will talk about my boobs and nipples. Because it's literally come up in every single episode that
I
I've
love
listened
it.
to so far. So this again has to do with me, my boobs being out not even when they shouldn't be. Someone walked in on my boobs being out when they should have been.
Oh no.
So that's a cliffhanger. That's my wild mom moment. I'm not going to tell you the rest. You have to tune back in next week. And that's when you hear we're going to do a serial. That's when you'll learn what that story's about. No, I was pumping. I have an office where I'm like my own office where I can shut the door. There's no windows or anything. And I was pumping in my office.
At work?
This is at work.
Okay.
Yes, this is at work. And so I'm pumping in my office and I'm also being a badass multitasking and on a meeting on Teams, but I just don't have my camera on.
Right.
So I have headphones on because that's the only way my work camera will work for some reason. I have headphones on. I'm in this meeting. I'm participating and I'm also pumping. So my office is also like a makeshift storage closet for everyone else, which is fine. We love that for me. But while I was pumping, I forgot to put a sign on my door that said pumping or basically said, get the fuck out of here.
Mm-hmm.
So it just looked like a shut door and it was locked. I had a very sweet, wonderful respiratory therapist who does our COVID testing in the office was coming into my office because we give out little snacks when our staff gets COVID tested and they're kept in my office like in a little storage closet.
Okay.
He was knocking away. I had headphones on because I was in a meeting.
Okay.
And so to his dismay, he did open the door, which means he had to go get a supervisor to get a master key to open the door, to open it to me. And I, at this point, again, my boobs are out when they're out.
Yeah.
But I'm being milked like a cow because I was pumping without a pump cover on because I was in my office.
Yeah.
And I looked at them while I'm on a meeting, you can clearly see me in a meeting, as if they were wrong to do what they did. Where I literally went, I'm pumping on a meeting. And they're like, yeah, can you put up any amount of signage or do anything that would let us know not to come in because you are being milked like a cow. So it was a very awkward and uncomfortable moment. For them, I don't give a single shit. But then they didn't want to make eye contact with me for probably, a week.
Well, I mean,
yeah,
that's what you get.
That's what you get. You shouldn't unlock an office.
No. I mean,
unless you think there's an emergency.
They probably thought no one was in
there. Oh, they absolutely thought no one was in there. And I wasn't speaking during that time of the meeting. So they just thought it was, an office where no one was in there.
Right. I'm thinking about this poor sweet soul going home and telling his partner about this.
Yeah. Also, if you've never seen someone be milked, a human or a cow, it's probably disturbing to see a cow be milked too. If you've never seen a person be milked by a machine, it's a sight. It's a sight to behold. You've seen me be milked. Your husband has also seen me be milked. Like I said, I don't have much shame about it. But it was sad for those two people that had to see it.
What an odd disclosure to have to make to your partner. Like, I saw boobs today, but in the weirdest way possible.
In the weirdest way. They were being milked. And also I was topless. You know,
right.
I think it was more the amount of skin that was showing than like the actual, like someone's milking themselves in there. They're just like, I've never seen this coworker topless. And I said, now you have. You're lucky. You're welcome for that. So don't multitask or put a sign up. That's my advice. So my wild moment of the week, again, was, someone had to see my nakedness.
Imagine that guy has a podcast and he's telling this story.
Oh,
right?
he absolutely is. I would love that. So that was my wild moment.
So before we get into the episode, we did want to just say, so you heard from the disclaimer, today we are talking about infertility and pregnancy loss. I don't want you to think that this episode is going to be super depressing the whole time.
I was going to say, the whole time. There should be a part of it that's depressing.
Yeah, think of it as like a fun little seesaw. Like, we're going to start up, we're going to go down, and then we're going to go back up again.
Back up.
Yeah.
So if you're feeling down, know that there's a comeuppance.
Yes.
There will be a comeuppance at the end.
Because here's the thing. We want to honor this topic. I specifically want to make sure that my experiences are being told in a way that, I'm comfortable with. This is still Moms in the Wild, right? We still want it to be how we envision the podcast to be. We can tackle serious topics, but in a fun, special way that we eventually, it's not the whole time going to be super depressing.
Absolutely. And also, part of this podcast was to take experiences that we have had that have not been so fun in the moment and to be able to bring levity and humor to them.
Yes.
And so there are, of course, going to be parts of this episode where there's not a way to bring levity and humor to it because it really isn't something that was funny or can be turned into something that's funny. But other times, of course, we can laugh about, not just your own personal experience, but the way that people have treated that experience, myself included.
If you get to a point in the pod where if you just can't take it anymore, and then it's not going to be graphic or intense, but these are serious, hard topics to talk about.
Absolutely.
So if you get to a point where you're kind of tapped out, go ahead and fast forward, or just we totally understand if this isn't the one for you. Next week we'll be back to our usual crazy laughing at ourselves moments.
Absolutely.
But this episode will have that too. Yeah. Okay, so first we're going to talk about family planning questions in general.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter what your background is, what your experience is with family planning, but this phenomenon of people feeling as if they have access to this very personal part of your life. So this includes when you first get married and people are like, when are the babies coming?
Yes.
Or when you have one kid and it's like, oh, when's baby number 2? Or, is this your first child? These kinds of questions that I feel like I get asked on
regularly,
almost a daily basis.
Yes.
By people who, and I cannot stress this enough, don't know me.
Even at all.
No.
This is cashier at a grocery store.
Yes.
Someone that you bump into at the doctor's office. That's your doctor's appointment, but you happen to have your kid with you. Some of it, I think, is making small talk, but it's not small talk for a lot of people. It's serious questions.
Yeah.
Also, at the heart of these questions, you're just when are you fucking?
Yeah.
Right? If you're asking someone when they're thinking about having kids or if they're trying to have kids, you're asking if they're boning. If you wouldn't just look at them in the face and go, are you having sex? Stop asking the damn questions.
Or ask that.
Or ask that, yeah. How's your sex life?
Are you having unprotected sex?
I would prefer that. Are you having sex while you're ovulating? Oh my God, what a nice way to ask if I'm trying to have a baby.
Yeah, so I think you're right. I think it is just in general, people are curious. I'm curious. Right? I think I have that, even going through what we've been through, I still have that nag in me sometimes to be like, oh, I wonder when they're going to have another baby, or I wonder when they're going to have a kid. And I think it's one of those things that you don't really know the implications until you've been through something.
Sure.
To me, it's you don't know what road anyone has walked down, right? So that's something to consider. Another thing to consider is well, what's wrong with just having one kid?
Yeah. So you don't need to, it's a question I get asked all the time with the baby is when you're having, and she is a proper baby.
Yeah.
Homie is 11 months old.
She's not 1.
She's not even 1. She's barely there. So always we're still surviving. We're barely making it. Yes. We're just hanging on at every moment. And I say that for both of us. That poor creature is just trying to survive in the world. And people will be like, when's number 2? And I want to look at them and be like, do you want to care for number 2? I am up to here.
Yeah.
I am doing all of the things that I can do. I am taking care of this child. Number 2 is not on my radar.
No.
at all whatsoever. And the reaction to that is usually something that's odd. You know, if I'm like, yeah, I'm not really thinking about it right now, or I don't know, people are like, oh, you're gonna want to.
Yeah.
That's okay. Well,
And what an assumption to make. Maybe like my cup is full with one child.
Yes.
Right? What we're kind of getting at is look at all of the things that these questions could imply, could bring up. I mean, we didn't even touch a 100th of something that could come up when you ask these questions. So for me, it's like, what happened that this information feels like it's owed to people, anyone?
Yeah. And also just, I don't want to stray too far from that, but if you are asking the question, be prepared for a very blunt, real answer, potentially an emotional response.
Yes.
This reminds me kind of that pregnancy topic where we talked about the please don't. Is being ready for an answer when you ask someone that's pregnant that's very real and raw, if that's what they're experiencing. Same with this. If you want to ask someone about their family planning, if you feel bold enough to do that, you better be ready for an answer.
Yes.
And that answer might be none of your fucking business, you clown.
Yeah.
Get prepared.
Yes. That's the thing is you really have to like weigh the risks with asking personal information. There's been times in my life where people are like, oh, when's baby number 2? And I just look at them and I'm like, I've lost 2 babies.
Yes.
And that's it. Then
and that's the honest answer to that question.
Any further questions, counselor?
Yeah.
Like, you know,
anything else that you'd like to ask me? Thank you.
There are some moments where like, you know, you don't know what people have gone through. You don't know what kind of day people are having. And so I think that's the crux of this whole thing is like, it doesn't matter if anyone's been through infertility or been through loss or like had a tragedy happen. It just like, to me, it's just not cool to ask.
Yeah.
If people want to tell you, they'll tell you.
I agree with that. I think let that, again, be person-led. If people want to tell you what they're experiencing, what their plans are, the idea of having multiple children is not for everyone.
No.
And that's not abnormal.
No.
Especially now. How are you going to pay for more than one kid?
Yeah.
What is this? Post-pandemic housing market's crazy. How are you going to pay for more than one kid? No, thank you. So what would you prefer? Is your preference that people do not ask about family planning? Or is there a way that you've been asked that you felt was comfortable, appropriate, and respected boundaries?
I think it's hard, right? So everything is very raw for me. And I will say, like, before I go into my story, which we'll get into a little bit later, I'm a raw nerd when it comes to this kind of stuff. In my perfect world, I would talk about it when I wanted to.
Yeah.
But I know that that's not like...
Yeah. I feel like maybe just talking about your own kids as a starting point.
Yes.
This is how old my children are. And I do think that maybe some of the hesitation of that is not wanting to only talk about yourself, where I love talking about myself. I love me.
Yeah.
I'm great. So I'm the first one at gymnastics who's like, here's my baby. She's a fucking star. She will be an Olympian. I'm not asking you about your family. You all know I genuinely don't care. But also, I want to keep it above board, and let's just talk about what I have going.
Yeah, that's a very good idea. I like that idea.
Start with you.
Start with you. Yeah. It's very murky waters.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know what the right answer is. That is as close to the right answer as I've ever heard.
Yeah. I do think it's another one of those things like with pregnancy where there sometimes isn't a right answer. If you are choosing to ask personal questions of someone you don't know personally, the response is going to vary.
What really baffles me are like the stranger interactions. I was at a theme park and watching my son play this game with another kid, and the mom started a whole family planning conversation with me.
When you say whole, what did she get into? Because I am interested because I've had some weird interactions. It started with, is he your only child? Mm-hmm. Which is a difficult conversation for me because I have lost 2 pregnancies. Since having him.
Yes. So I just say yes. Because I'm just trying to keep the peace.
Yeah.
At this point, though, you can kind of feel...
You're like, I'm at a theme park.
Your blood kind of start to like get a little simmery. Mm-hmm. And then it was, oh, well, are you going to have more kids? And I'm like, I'm at SeaWorld.
There's so many things to talk about. Bring up Blackfish. Like, there's so many things to talk about right now that are not family planning.
That's my new strategy. Whatever someone talks about, I'm just going to bring up but yeah, it's stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm just like, and she meant very well, right? It was, she wanted to tell me that she has an older daughter and the age gap between her 2 kids are perfect. And like, because I said, no, we're actually trying. I don't know why. sometimes me wanting to be polite and make other people
Is
feel good.
answering questions.
Yeah, is answering questions or providing information instead of just like holding a boundary.
Yeah, I think we're always waiting for that other person's response to that, because if you hold the boundary, it can be uncomfortable. And if you were not brought up, you know, in a situation where like the whole boundary holding thing was really important and emphasized, it's practice, you know, and doing it with a stranger on the fly when they're talking about very personally sensitive information probably doesn't come naturally.
No.
I can imagine you're like, I have a hard boundary, Karen, and I'm going to set it now. No, that's not going to, the natural thing to do is just to continue to answer the questions.
Yeah.
Because if you say, you know, I don't feel comfortable answering that, what if her response is, you are a bitch?
Yeah.
I think that like there's this underlying fear of her being like, well, I was just trying to make small talk. I'm just
Yeah.
like, oh no, I don't want to have that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want a confrontation right now. I'm just trying to be at the theme park. So instead now I'm kind of cornered into answering some questions I don't really want to answer.
Yeah, so her thing was all like,
tell me about your fucking
it's so
family.
great you're trying right now because this baby, you know, we have this age gap and it's great, and any older than this, you know, the bad things happen. And I'm sitting there, have been trying for 2 years.
Yep.
And I'm like, you just don't know what that means. Like, I don't have a choice of when my age gap is between my kids. I was supposed to have 2 different ones, and I'm still waiting. So, like, it's just, and at this point, I can feel, like, my face getting red. I can feel, you know, and it's just, like, I'm trying very hard to still be, like,
to
a
continue to be
human.
polite. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's difficult because in and of itself, when someone assumes that this thing is very easy for them, it can be really isolating. And that can just even further, like, make it more difficult.
That was what I was getting at, though, was I think that we've kind of maybe danced around this a little bit. It's not just that, are you planning to have more? And then the conversation's dropped. The conversation I'm talking about that I don't like is, are you planning to have more? And then a lot of advice and insight about how to do that, the best way to do that. I've had someone that approached me when we were in the grocery store. So again, another very random person, baby's in the stroller. And anytime I take the baby, I know I'm going to be showered in attention. And a woman stopped us as we were shopping and asked the same question. Are you planning to have more? Or how old is she? Are you planning to have more? And I kind of just brushed it off like I got my hands full or said something, you know, quippy that didn't really answer the question, which was, no, I'm not planning to have more right now. That's not in my plans.
Also, like, fuck off.
Yeah. And so then went into, after knowing her age, went into this whole conversation about how the perfect time when she is 3, that is when I should start trying to have children again. They will be the perfect age apart if they are 3 years apart. And it'll be so much easier to have a 3 year, which I'm just like, is great and true. And it's probably her life experience. But I already answered you to be like, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
I have done all I can to say, I'm not interested. I don't want your wisdom. I don't want your hot take on my family. I want to buy Cape Cod potato chips and I want to see myself out of the store, and you are preventing that from happening. So get out of my way.
Yes. And here's what's hilarious about that. The girl at SeaWorld was telling me if they're 3, it's too much of an age gap.
Oh, see?
So it's all bullshit.
There's not a right answer. That's really the conclusion. There's not a right answer. Just proceed with caution.
Yeah. And also, like, unless you were, like, dying to know this is a need that if it's not satiated, you will not be a complete person.
You'll stay awake all night.
Yeah.
You'll think about it. You'll
like,
hire a PI to find out.
Just say, shut up to yourself. I don't need to know this. Don't ask.
Yeah. Family planning may not be appropriate small talk, even though we treat it, it gets treated like it's an appropriate small talk conversation.
Right.
Whether that's on board for small talk, celebrity gossip.
Yes.
Throw that right in my face.
Oh my God. Can we talk about
music, anything else?
Yes.
And it happens a lot, I think. It ends at some point. It has to, right? Like, you don't have a 13-year-old and then someone goes, you haven't anymore?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I think so.
Yeah, so at some point it ends. So, again, why are we treating newer, quote-unquote, newer parents or parents of younger children as if these questions are the most appropriate?
Yeah. So, let's get into it. Let's get into my story.
Yeah.
Okay. We were very lucky that we were able to get pregnant with Nate in 3 months. So I am one of those people who, like, in kindergarten, when they asked you what you wanted to be when you grew up, I said a mom. Like, I have just had it in my bones that I am meant to be a mom. And more specifically, I think I'm meant to be a mom to more than one child. So, and not to say that I don't love Nate and he's not enough, but I have this ache in my body that tells me more than one is what I was meant to be and what I was meant to be here for.
Yeah.
So when Nate was 8 months old, we decided to start trying. thinking that, it would take a couple of months like it did for him. So at the time...
Also just brave. I know Bubba at 8 months was just a joy. At least for me, as someone from outside your family. When I think of the insanity, though, you must have been going through at that time to be like, let's do it. And I know, of course, you're anticipating 9 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. But still, brave. Brave.
Yeah, so that was our thinking. He's 8 months old. We'll have 10 months of pregnancy, and then
if we get pregnant right away,
yes,
you're trying to plan all that stuff. Yeah,
right. So at that time, I had done the typical new mom thing where I just ignored all my medical needs. So I had
yay!
This is like disgusting. I had an ingrown toenail when Bubba was born.
Yes.
And I just pretended like it didn't exist.
Yeah.
I had to go have surgery.
Yeah.
Not like surgery, but an inpatient procedure. At this point, I had 3 surgeries, quote unquote, and I needed a 4th because these things are
relentless.
Bitch. So like if you ever have an ingrown toenail, just get it taken care of like ASAP if you can, because mine lasted for months.
Yeah.
So anyways, I'm in the office and they're like, they wanted to give me an antibiotic because by this point, like I was not looking good after my last procedure. And so they're like, are you pregnant? And I'm like, no, I have an 8-month-old at home. No. There's no way. Like this was our first month trying.
Yeah.
So I was like, no, I'm not pregnant. And I had been spotting. So usually like my cycle is I'll spot for a few days and then my period will start. Mm-hmm. So I was like, definitely not. So they're like, great. So they write me the antibiotic. I fill it. I go home and I'm about to take it. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm feeling a little weird about taking this. And, David being like the logical person he is he's like, do you have an extra pregnancy test? Like, just take it.
Just feel this, peace of mind. Yeah.
So I'm like, okay. So I go to the bathroom, take it, and I, in like 30 seconds, am staring at like the most positive pregnancy test you've ever seen.
No doubts in my mind about this.
No doubt.
You don't have to get the one like I did that has to say pregnancy so you know how to read it.
It was like the test line was darker than the control line.
Yeah, you were like, it's very evident.
Yeah. So I was shocked. And it was fun because I never in my life thought I'd be shocked by a pregnancy. Because I'm just so like insane about trying to get pregnant that like I start testing like way before you should. And so it was truly like taken aback. So I walked out and I told him and he was like just flabbergasted because neither of us were like.
And then you both made eye contact with your 8-month-old.
Yes.
Like, all right.
And what is very, very weird is that the second I told him, I had an intense pain in my right side that dropped me to my knees. And in that moment, I chalked it up to like, I think what you just said, like locking eyes with my 8-month-old, realizing like we're about to have 2 under 2, way under 2.
I'm going to be pregnant with like an under 2 year, with a baby. I'll be pregnant caring for a baby.
Yes. So we were super happy, but I was shocked and it was, fun. So I called the office back and I was like, hey, I can't take this antibiotic. I'm actually pregnant.
Guess who's pregnant?
And they were like, oh my God, congratulations. So we figured out another treatment plan for that. But I did immediately call my doctor because I had been spotting. Mm-hmm. And so they were like, okay, spotting is normal for early pregnancy. So we'll go ahead. When was your last period? We'll go ahead and bring you in for an ultrasound. So I go in and by this point it had been like 2 days. So my bleeding was heavier and I was pretty sure I was losing it.
Okay.
So I go in, I have an ultrasound and the sonographer won't make eye contact with me. So I can tell that.
And usually they're like a chatty Kathy.
Yeah.
Like especially at that pregnancy visit when they're trying to, for a lot of the times they'll be like chatting your ear up and da-da-da. So you already are like, okay.
Yeah.
Something's happening.
She won't make eye contact and she's like, I have to excuse myself. I need to go get the doctor. Mm. And so I'm like, okay. So I'm by myself because this was October 2020. So COVID still was like a big rampant thing.
Yeah. Like you weren't able to bring a support person
with
you. Yeah.
No. So the doctor comes in and she's like, there is something strange that we're seeing on your right side. We think that it's an accessory ovary, which I guess in some cases cells from your ovary can split off and make like a pretend ovary is how kind of she explained it to me.
Because it's like an ovary but with a handbag.
Yeah.
An accessory ovary? A vanity ovary.
So weird.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
But she looked me in my eyes and said, this is not an ectopic pregnancy. This is not what those look like. And so I said, okay. So after the ultrasound, I went in. She explained to me that they didn't see any viable signs of a pregnancy and that I was miscarrying.
Did they relate that to this, what they assumed was the accessory ovary? Or this was just like what they thought was causing you pain and bleeding?
Yeah, basically. They were just, no, they said the bleeding was from the
from the miscarriage. Okay.
But that the weird thing they found was just like this strange phenomenon that sometimes happens.
Gotcha.
And so I'm like, well, I'm in a lot of pain on that side. And they're like, yeah, totally normal with miscarriage. Like, don't worry. They're like, just to be safe, we're going to have you come back in a week.
That's a significant amount of time for someone that's in pain and bleeding.
Yes.
But anyway.
So they tell me I'm going to have bleeding, very heavy bleeding for the next couple days, like a week, I think they said. And then I'd have cramping and stuff. And so, of course, I'm just devastated.
Yeah.
That like my one shot at, not one shot, but my shot at like kind of the surprise miracle pregnancy isn't going to happen.
Yeah.
So I go home, I start to grieve. I'm, miscarrying. So at this point, my mom had come down because I didn't want to do the second ultrasound alone. And they had told me that because of the circumstances, I could bring David to my next appointment.
Okay.
So, because we just had to confirm that, this is what was happening.
Yes.
So I go back, same thing. They're like, it's the same thing as there, but my doctor came in. She said, this is not an ectopic pregnancy. Like, I can tell you that with 100% certainty. She's like, if you have any pain that's like unbearable, you need to go to the ER, or like crazy bleeding, but like you are miscarrying.
Mm-hmm. And then they're just kind of like, bye.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I had an HCG test done when I had my first ultrasound, and that came back like very positive, which is a sign of an ectopic pregnancy.
Yeah.
And so they were like, we're going to keep monitoring that, make sure it's going down. So they did that at that appointment. So that night, my mom had come in town to help take care of Bubba because I was very, very sad.
Yeah.
And I wasn't in a place to like really be able to like look at my 8-month-old after we had spent 2 weeks imagining our lives and how they would look.
Absolutely.
And I just wasn't in a great place. So she was there. We watched like trash reality, Housewives TV. I had a glass of wine and David had gone to bed, and I went to bed. I was laying there and I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to the bathroom like one more time. Go to the bathroom, and I come to sit back in the bed, and I have the most excruciating pain. And you all know this by now. Like, I had a C-section when my epidural didn't work. So I felt my whole C-section. This was the most excruciating pain I've ever felt.
And also you have a very high pain tolerance.
Yes.
Like, so you saying anything is excruciating, most people would have probably passed out.
Yeah.
Or died.
So, the worst pain ever. My sounds woke up David from sleep, and he's a very heavy sleeper. So immediately we knew like there was something very wrong. So he drives me to our closest ER. I become one of those people in like the movies where he's like sprinting to get me a wheelchair. I'm sitting in it like audibly being like groaning, just like, help, someone help me. They're like trying to take like my intake stuff, and he's like, get us in a room, like somebody help us.
We will give you the information when we get to the room. Also, how laid back usually like an ED is, where they're like, hey honey, what's your name, as you're audibly like screaming or have a gunshot or something. They're like, all right, just gonna do your intake form, and you're like, no, something is happening to my body that's very scary.
Yes. So
just need your insurance, your payment information. Great.
So they get me into a room, but they're like, we cannot give you any pain medicine until we figure out what's going on. So they gave me, I had an internal ultrasound that took 1 hour.
Oh. Okay.
And I had to be inclined because the bleeding was so bad
Oh.
that like she was like, we need to like incline you a little bit, I guess, or like because of something. But I was like basically like
my
head was at the floor.
Yeah. She was like, we should keep the floor clean. We'll just turn you upside down.
Yeah. I don't know if that was it, but I was inclined and it was horrible. And finally she's like, okay, we're going to send this off to our radiologist to look at.
Yeah.
So finally they come in and they give me, this is like a light moment of the story, but they come in and they're like, we're going to give you fentanyl. And during my birth, I told my husband on fentanyl how much I loved it. And so my husband, thinking like this is a bright spot, I'm finally going to get some relief, in front of the doctor, looks at me and goes, oh my God, you love that.
And they were like, drug seeking, now you get nothing. Ooh, fentanyl, she loves that, lives for it.
And I'm like, shut up.
You know what? I want the drugs, so stop saying things that will not allow me to get the drugs.
So they gave me some. It didn't touch the pain, what I was dealing with, but it did like dull it just a tiny bit so I could like remember I was a human being.
Yeah.
So a couple minutes later, the doctor
I would have been like, put me under.
Yeah.
I don't even want to know what's going on with my body anymore. Honestly, sedate me. Do whatever you can. Give David the information. Just put me under and figure it out.
So he comes back in a few minutes later and he is like, okay, I just want to understand, because I told them all the history. Like, I found out I was pregnant on this date. I had 2 ultrasounds. I said it was not ectopic. So he comes in and he's like, I don't know who told you that this was not an ectopic pregnancy, but our board certified radiologist just looked at this, and it's not only is it an ectopic pregnancy, but it is rupturing, and you have to have emergency surgery. And so,
but at this point, you were at a urgent care.
I was at emergency at ER.
You were at an ER, okay,
like a standalone ER.
Gotcha.
So
where they wouldn't have been able to do an emergency surgery.
No.
Okay.
So they get an ambulance, my first ever ambulance ride. The man on the ambulance was sweetest. They gave me morphine, which didn't touch what I was feeling, but it was a nice thought. They take me to the same hospital where I'd had my son, where I had a lot of trauma from that experience. So it immediately became like, didn't feel the best. So we get checked into their ER. The doctor on call came in and said, we looked at the scans. We have to do our own ultrasound to make sure. So at this point, I was still in like excruciating pain. I went and had an 1.5 hour long ultrasound where like the ultrasound tech just couldn't get a good view because my ovaries are very high in my body. They've always been that way. And so she was just having a very hard time finding what to look at. So she made me like try to go to the bathroom a million times. It was a mess. So anyways, it ended up being the doctor coming in and saying, we're not sure if it's an ectopic pregnancy. Wow. So it's really up to you what you want to do.
I have not gone to medical school. My kind doctor is what I would like to respond.
It's like 2 a.m.
And you're also in excruciating pain.
Yes.
So like, what do you mean it's up to me?
Yeah.
Tell me what's going on.
Yes. So
even tell me your best guess of what's going on. Jesus.
So he said, we haven't slept. It's like 2 a.m. He's like, what you can do is you can either get this dose of this medicine called methotrexate, which is like, how it was explained to me, it's like liquid chemotherapy that you can get injected. And what it will do is force your body to miscarry.
Okay.
To start miscarrying. Or you can have a surgery.
Which both of these point to me more that they did somewhat believe you were having an ectopic pregnancy. Because if they already knew you were miscarrying, like you were aware and you already knew and could inform them you were miscarrying, having a miscarriage rather. So then just giving you a medication to like expedite that, like something's happening there. This is stuck somewhere, right? So it sounds to me like you know what's going on and you're just giving me these 2 weird options that you're making me pick.
So they basically said, like, if you can go home and live with the pain that you're in for the next week.
Is someone going to be a fentanyl drip at my house?
The methotrexate's going to make it worse. Then we'll just do that. And at that point, I was so tired. I still had a little bit of morphine in my system. So we kind of like asked him to step out of the room. Which he was super offended, by the way. But I was like, I need a minute to just think. Yeah. So we decided, like, let's get admitted. Let's let the morphine get out of my system. We told him, like, we'll just do the methotrexate here.
Sure.
So anyways, he's like, okay, fine, you can do that. So we go up to our room in like 10 minutes in the room. I'm like, I can't do this. There's no way that there's not something like very wrong. And plus we had just been sent from an ER that told us with 100% certainty this is happening.
Yeah.
So I was scared for like my life.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I have an 8-month-old at home. Mm-hmm. And I remember like looking at the doctor and being like, I have an 8-month-old at home. I want to be able to go home to him.
Exactly.
So what do I need to do for that to be able to happen? Because these people have told me it's ruptured, and from what I know about a ruptured ectopic pregnancy, like you become septic and it kills you.
And you die. Mm-hmm.
So I'm getting 2 very different stories here.
And one of them is very life-threatening, and the one you're telling me is like, maybe you go home and just see what happens.
Yeah. So we decide to do the surgery. Mind you, like at this point, still no doctor has been like, yes, we think you should.
Yeah.
So one of the most surreal moments of my life, and I've always been very scared of going under anesthesia. I've never had to before. And for some reason, like I just was like, if I ever have to go under anesthesia, like I'll definitely be the one who's allergic to it because I'm allergic to everything.
I will die.
I'll die. And so I was very like, they wouldn't let David come with me to like the prep space. So it was just me. And I remember them bringing over these forms and they were talking about what did I wanted them to do in case this was a fetus.
Yeah.
And the options were like medically dispose of it or have a funeral home
come to pick up.
Send it somewhere. And at like 3 a.m. I just like, it was the most like out of body experience I've ever had. And also strange because like, you can't tell me that this is a fetus. Mm-hmm. I don't know. And also like checking medical waste feels disgusting.
Not great either.
Yeah. I mean like, So I ended up checking, like, just medically dispose of it, I guess. I don't know. So, and I didn't have my partner there to talk to about. Yeah. So, like, what?
And you're in excruciating pain. I, like, good on the hospital for making that an option, both of those options, but maybe not when someone's in a compromised position. Like, maybe you figure out what you're going to do, like a morgue situation or something, until that person that's not in a compromised situation can make that decision.
Yeah. They come in and they're like, great, we're doing the surgery. And I was, like, another light moment is I was convinced, because my epidural didn't work, that I was convinced the anesthesia wasn't going to work. Anyways, they do the surgery. I come out and, you know, you're groggy when you wake up.
Yeah.
The anesthesia did work, by the way. The last thing I remember is I'm laying in the room and they put the mask over my face. Like, come back from 10. And I'm like, 10? This isn't going to work. No, I'm never going to fall asleep. And then dead. Just, out to the world. So
did they play music or anything while you were going under?
No.
Or were they just...
They were really sweet to me.
They were.
Yeah.
It always makes me so anxious, that, like, before moment when it's very sterile and you don't have your person there that brought you. And it's like, even if you were so comfortable, which you weren't, but even if you're very comfortable with what's happening, I imagine that moment is very heavy.
It was super daunting. Yeah. I had written a letter to Bubba before this, when I felt like things were not going great, and I had stuck it in his baby book, and before I was brought down for surgery, I told David where it was. And he, you know, we both were crying, and I just wanted to be prepared that if I didn't make it,
absolutely,
that some part of me was left.
Absolutely.
So that was scary. They were really sweet to me, though. Like, it was the same hospital, but I think it's a different experience because before I was going to have a baby and now I was here to lose a baby.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that was different. So I wake up and they tell me that, yes, it was an ectopic pregnancy. I was about 6 weeks along and that it was rupturing.
Yeah.
So if we hadn't have done it,
it would have
been a very different, ending. So yeah, after that,
You punched the doctor in the face.
I went home that day.
Oh my gosh.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was just a few months of just a really, like, hard depression. I felt like a failure. I felt like I had this little baby that was trying so hard to exist, and my body just refused to let it happen. So that was really difficult. I felt like I let my son down because he was no longer going to be a big brother. I felt like I let my husband down because at the end of the day, when something like that happens, it's your body. No one else can really say, like, and I know, like, now sitting here, I know it wasn't my fault. I know that these things just sometimes happen. Maybe that tube has just always been damaged.
Sure.
And Bubba was lucky enough to come out the side that's clear. So, yeah, it was really hard. I took a very long time to want to talk about it. I very much so, like, shut down, which is very different for me because I like to talk, obviously. I have a podcast.
Here we are.
But I didn't want to talk about it, and I mean, you saw me after. I was, like, just kind of like a shell of a person.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that happened, and that was November of 2020. So, I think for me, once I had this experience and this loss, very, like, conversely, the need, the yearning, the ache, the desperation to have another baby just was, like, increased tenfold.
Yeah. I also, you just had, and I don't want to speak for you, but that feeling of something being taken, you got to project all the way out to what that baby's life was, and then having that be taken away in such an excruciating, painful, life-threatening way.
Yeah.
Then, like, I think that knowing that that's a possibility, because with Bubba, you got pregnant with Bubba, and then to have this, I think it makes it all feel so fragile.
Before this, I saw a positive pregnancy test and assumed a baby followed.
Absolutely. That had been the trajectory of the current child that you had.
Yes.
Yeah, and so I that volatile feeling, and also you see how fragile it can be, I imagine would completely amplify that emotion of, like, no, I need to do this. I need to do this. Yeah.
So in my surgery, they did have to end up taking my right fallopian tube. So they told me, like, that would affect my fertility anywhere from, like, 35 to 50%. So that wasn't, like, great news.
Yeah. We're like, oh my gosh, thank you, doctor.
Yeah.
Thanks for all this great news and your misdiagnosis of the complete situation.
Yeah. So we waited a while, and then that desperation that, like, I got, like, the all clear from my doctors, like, you're okay to start if you want to start trying. They actually told me, like, I went in for my follow-up, which was, like, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 weeks after the surgery. They told me, like, the next cycle I could start trying. And I was like, you are out of your goddamn mind.
I do have a question for you.
Sure.
At any point from the doctor's visit where they were confirming that you were miscarrying to ectopic pregnancy, did any medical professional say, here's some support resources?
No. Nor was there ever...
Like, I don't love this news that you're sharing with me.
No.
Yeah.
Nor was there ever an acknowledgement of we fucked up. Which
Yes.
really
Bothered. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I was expecting to go into like my post-op checkup and have like a full apology.
Yeah.
Which was not the case.
Be like, by the way, we told you absolutely didn't have an ectopic pregnancy, and you did.
Twice.
Yeah, two times.
Yeah.
2 times. And here we are.
Yeah.
Did you change doctors, or did you like the practice enough that you were like, okay, I think I can stay? But
you know what? I think I was so depleted that I couldn't even imagine like having to go to someone else and tell my story that I just stayed.
Were they who you saw through your pregnancy with Bubba as well?
So the lucky thing about that, but the lucky thing about that office is there are multiple doctors.
Yes.
So I didn't have to see the same doctor again if I didn't want to. So a couple months later, I felt like I was in a place where we could try again. And so we tried for a month, didn't get pregnant. And then in April, we did get pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really exciting. We were very lucky in like the times that we tried, like the amount of time it took us to get pregnant.
Sure.
Like we got pregnant. So it was really exciting. Again, like you go through the like, oh my God, like he's going to be a big brother. We're going to have another little baby. Like thinking about the age differences and what are we going to be doing this time next year? You know, how are we going to announce? And we actually did announce it to you guys.
Yeah.
So that was really fun.
Little
did we know you were also
cute.
pregnant.
I was. Literally had found out like 7 days prior.
Yeah. And then a few days later, no, it was like a week later.
Was there anything, did you announce the first one? I never asked you that. Did you tell like when you and David found out you were pregnant, or was finding out you were pregnant and then finding out about the miscarriage so close together that you didn't even have time to...
We didn't have time, yeah.
You
Because I was spotting when I found out.
I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So we told my parents.
But that was kind of
I think we told his parents too. So a couple days later, I start spotting. And I'm like, okay. So we called the doctor. I went and had an HCG done. They're like, the blood test where they tell you like how you're doing. And they're like, yeah, you're pregnant. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay. They're like, spotting is normal. Try not to worry about it. Mm-hmm. Okay. So then they have you come in after 48 hours. And that number, that HCG is supposed to double for like a healthy pregnancy within 48 hours. So
because you're spotting, they had you come in?
No, just it's like once you have one HCG, they want to know what that 48-hour number is normally.
Gotcha.
So yeah, they're like, come in again. We'll just make sure like this looks like, and with my history, they're like, let's just
make sure.
Mm-hmm. So I go in, they call, and they're like, okay, it's not doubled, but it's not abnormal. Like we've still had people have healthy pregnancies with this not happening. And so we're like, okay. So at this point, I start to like guard my heart. But it had been like 2 weeks since we had found out. So, you know, we had that build up. We had told Nate, like, we're going to have a baby brother or sister. And yeah, I ended up miscarrying. So that one, my HCG just continued to fall. I just continued to bleed, and I just miscarried at home. So that was another interesting experience where, you know, you're miscarrying and you're realizing like what's happening and you're the only one who really can deal with it. So obviously that was really...
It's so hard because, or I imagine it's so hard because, like you said, you're the only one that can deal with it. So your world is stopping, but the whole world is still carrying on around you. And also your mom. So you still have to be momming this whole time. You can't just be like, hey, I have to pause, call out, or do whatever. You know, you still have a dependent that you have to take care of.
Yes. And to be very honest with you, I don't remember a ton of details from that time. I think my body and my brain just went into like survival mode. Yeah. So yeah, we did miscarry. And then... I don't know. I think we gave ourselves a couple months, started trying again, and we are at the place now where we've been trying for 2 years. So yeah, we've been dealing with secondary infertility. I am working with a fertility doctor who is trying to help us.
Who seems like a very kick-ass doctor.
Yes.
Which is great.
It's been a very long road.
Mm-hmm. I
think when you deal with pregnancy loss and infertility, it does feel excruciatingly lonely.
Yeah.
And even like from your partner. sooner. I had a very hard time talking to David about it. He wanted to talk about it and I just like wasn't. My thing was like, if I open up these gates and I allow myself to really dive into what I'm feeling, I don't think I can be like a mom.
Yeah, like a functional person that needs to take care of another person and manage a household and do everything that you're doing.
Yes. So I pushed it down for a long time. I did get therapy eventually. I still struggle with it. I have done some things that have been helpful. We named both of our babies that we lost, which is really special.
And you set up like a nice little memorial in your house.
Yeah. So what was really cool is like after each loss, we had like these like nature signs that popped up after each. So after the atopic, we had this like bright red cardinal that literally followed us everywhere. Like we went to New York and it was there. So yeah, we have our little cardinal, and then after our miscarriage, this like gorgeous monarch butterfly would literally like, I'd be out playing in the backyard with Bubba and she would fly around our heads and like try to land on us, and that just never happened before. So we have a little memorial in our house, and I try to, when Bubba like, oh, what's that? Like, he knows like butterflies are really special to us and birds are really special to us. And I'm still like trying to decide like how we handle that when he gets older. So yeah, it's a long road. I'm still obviously like struggling with parts of it. I think grief in general, but for me, I can really only speak to like grief about like pregnancy loss, is that it really does just like hit you out of nowhere. Yeah.
I think that's a huge part of grief though, is like having those grief attacks where there doesn't have to necessarily be a stimuli. You just are, like you said, hit with this huge wave of emotion that comes up for you.
Yeah. Even the other day, like I was sitting watching TV and we had this ball, like this plastic ball that Bubba had put by the TV, and it started to like randomly move on its own. And I'm sure it was just like, you know, whatever, like the AC kicked on and hit it a different way. But like, I don't know, in my head, I was like, we would have a like baby who could reach that. Yeah. And like, it just like I immediately went down to like, I imagined like this baby like reaching up and hitting it and like, you know. So that was like this week. So it still like hits you out of nowhere.
You saw this whole, and I know you've already said it here, but you saw this whole life. Yeah. You know, you saw this whole trajectory of what these pregnancies end up as. Like you said, you know, you had Bubba already. You knew, pregnancy in your case had ended with a child. Yes. And so then to have these, you saw that whole path happen. And that grief, you grieve that future that you have with both those babies. All of what that pregnancy and that birth and that future that you have with those babies look like. Yeah. And it comes out of nowhere. Just the reminders of what baby would be doing, or what baby looks like right now, and where baby would be at.
And it was funny, like last time we recorded, it was the first time ever in this time of infertility or in pregnancy loss or whatever, that I looked at your sweet daughter and realized I would have had a baby the same age.
They literally been 4 weeks apart. They were a month apart. If that.
Yeah. And that was crazy to me that like maybe like something in my brain just like blocked that to like protect me whenever I saw her, because I love her so much.
Yeah. She's a gem.
But it was the first time I was like, oh my God. Yeah. Like, that's crazy.
And there are all those, you know, anyone that was pregnant around the same time that you were pregnant, or, you know, when you see that their pregnancies went, and I was going to say turned into a birth, turned into a baby. Yeah, that's a lot.
Mm-hmm. So something like, I think that this idea of like this constant calendar is something I think is pretty specific to pregnancy loss, in that like I have a running calendar in my head of like, and it's gotten like less. That part of my brain has gotten more quiet in like as time goes on, but you just have this constantly running, like I would have a 1.5-year-old or a 1-year-old, or look at what like we would be doing this. So yeah, it's just part of it. You constantly have this, where would we be? You know, what would we be doing? Yeah, what would they be doing? So yeah, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about like the emotions, because I feel like normalizing those is really important. So like one of the main things for me that like I'm not super proud of is I have intense anger and jealousy when I see someone announce a pregnancy. Like, intense. And it could be like, you know, a fucking celebrity. Yeah. Like, it could be anyone.
You're like, why you, bitch? Why do you get this? No, yeah. I think that's completely normal.
Yeah, it's bad. Like, it will sometimes, like, wreck my whole day.
Yeah.
But I think, like you said, like, it's normal. Like, it's that idea of, like, I am extremely desperate. There is, like, a physical ache in my bones to have another baby, to, like, be pregnant and have a baby, a living child at the end of it. That, yeah.
And give yourself those moments, because I will say, someone who knows you, you're not a bitch about it. You're not, like, you don't go to, like, a baby shower and, like, be in the yard. You know, you're not doing anything you are happy for them. It's holding space for those two emotions that I think, it's important to bring that up. Allowing yourself to feel angry and jealous and, the why them and not me. Mm-hmm. But also you do allow yourself to feel happy for them. And those seem like conflicting emotions to have, but you can hold them at the same time. Yeah. And allowing yourself to do that. Be like, no, I can be happy for them, but also be pissed that they get to have this and I don't.
Yeah, and anyone who wants a baby, when they get a baby, I'm so happy.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm like, yes. I want everyone who has a baby, everyone who wants a baby to get a baby. Like, that is, yes. Great. Yay. Like,
but still allowing yourself or acknowledging that you also feel angry.
Yeah. And I'm not angry at them. You know, I'm angry at, like, the circumstances. If it was a matter of how bad you want it, I would have 13 children. There'd be babies right now. In your house. Yeah. But unfortunately, like, that
does not play into it.
It's not a part of the equation. These emotions that pop up afterwards, I think, are a normal part of it. Mm-hmm. And especially now dealing with infertility for 2 years, I don't know, everything is amplified. And I'm kind of just like a exposed nerve a lot of the times when it comes to this stuff. But I felt like it's a big weight to carry. And I feel like I carry it alone. And I know that's not the case. Like, I know for David, like, he thinks about it too and he remembers. But I don't know, a lot of the times it can feel like if I don't remember my babies, then no one else ever will.
Yeah. Yeah. That you're the keeper and the holder of that. And I respect that David, of course, has his own part in this, but I do think that something that's physically happening to your body is hard to make someone or have someone else understand that. Because you also have the physical component of you have to be awake and present and embody what a ectopic pregnancy and a miscarriage feels like, too. Yeah. So it's all of that. There's a physical entity as well as the emotional part of it. Yeah. You don't get to skip over that part. No. Like, your body has to do what it's doing. So
yeah, that's kind of where we are. Our doctor we're working with now is super hopeful. We have a good plan in place. I'm taking like 800 vitamins a day.
Why would you not? You know what? You might as well. So I should be taking at least one vitamin a day, and I'm not doing that. So you take them for the both of us, Kate.
I'm taking all of them. What do you got? I'll take it.
What do you got? Just say it.
So I just guess I'll close by saying, if you have gone through infertility or pregnancy loss, I just want you to know that you're not alone. Mm-hmm. It can feel very, very lonely. And it does feel very, very lonely. And I think that we should encourage those in our lives to help us remember these babies. I mean, this shouldn't be like a burden that just we carry. And like we'll talk about this when we talk about like how to support someone going through this. But I just want you to know that I see you. Mm-hmm. I know I don't know specifically, but I know what you're going through. I know how much it hurts to want something like this and not be able to get it. And I don't know. I just hope that everyone listening who wants a baby gets them. Yeah. And me included.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I just think it's an important conversation to have and important, like, things to normalize and get out there because it's a hard conversation to talk about. Yeah. It's a hard thing these are some of the most precious and traumatic and magical and scary moments of my life, all wrapped into one.
Mm-hmm. In a very short period of time.
Yeah. And I think that's the case for anyone who's been through stuff like this. So I think that there's hope. I think it's really hard to find sometimes. Yeah. And I did not have it for a very long time. I'm not sure really if I even have it now sitting here. But yeah, that's kind of our story. What we've been through, where we're going. But yeah, we'll kind of move into
what helps you, what makes you feel supported. Yeah. And also what continues to make you feel supported through this secondary infertility and what helped you to feel supported during and after ectopic and miscarriage.
Yeah. So I think the main thing for me is the remembrance. Yeah. Like, I don't think you have to like get deep. But like having someone else just like acknowledge either like the day you lost the baby or the day that the baby would have been born, or just kind of like a message, or, you know, hey, I'm thinking about you, you know, just knowing that like someone else remembers your baby
as well. Yeah.
That means a lot.
Yeah.
Because it's, you know, like you said, like to me, these are like children that I was supposed to have that I don't get to anymore.
Yeah.
It's such a weird thing. Like I talk about like pregnancy loss is like it's missing someone you never met.
Yes.
You know? And knowing that somebody else knows and remembers that they existed.
Yeah.
Like means a lot. So I would say if you have a friend who like has had a loss or is going through a loss, just like remembering that date, or like, you know, you guys were so sweet after we had our loss. You sent us like this beautiful basket that had like comfort items in it. And that was just, it's nice to like feel a little extra love from the people that love you during that time.
Yeah, it's such a form of disenfranchised grief where it just needs to be acknowledged and validated, and that type of loss is not, I don't think, nearly enough acknowledged or validated. And like you said, it doesn't have to be big, but just even sending a text message, hey, I'm thinking about you, you know, I want to acknowledge that you had a loss. You don't have to say that part, just acknowledging by saying, hey, I'm thinking about you, or send a card, or send something, hey, I'm thinking about you on today, or I'm thinking about you during this time, whatever it is. Just because, like you said, just because you didn't meet that person doesn't mean that you didn't lose that person.
Yeah.
And so a lot of what grief is that absence. So you still feel that absence that's there. Someone once said to me, you know, when our parents or our siblings die, we lose our past, but when our children die, we lose that future.
Yeah.
That's what we grieve, is that future.
Yeah.
And what that would have looked like. So just some acknowledgement of that. If you think about a loss that you've had, whether it was pregnancy or related, or any loss that you've had, death or non-death, someone acknowledging that you experienced a loss, how good did that feel?
Yeah.
How good did it feel just have someone be like, hey, I see you. I know that you like went through some shit. It just feels nice to have that. So pregnancy loss is not any different than that. So, you know, some acknowledgement of, hey, I see you. I know you're going through a loss, and not only doing it just when the loss happened. Like it's continuing to kind of say, hey, I wanted to just check in. I know this happened. And